Okay, my friends, this is amazing. We're talking about Yale. This is Yale School of Medicine. Well, what are they talking about? They're talking about skin injuries and food allergies may have a mysterious connection. Skin injuries and food allergies. Then they go on to talk about having a fresh cut on your skin, apparently, or a sunburn on your skin when you first try a new food could increase the chances of developing an allergy to that food. So if you have a cut on you, you shouldn't try any new food? Is that what they're saying? It suggests a new study led by Yale School of Medicine. Listen to this very, very carefully, what they're saying. Having a fresh cut. So if I cut myself and then I try peanuts for the first time, I'm likely to have it increases my chances of developing an allergy to that food. Well, I personally don't agree with that assessment, but let's look into it a little deeper. All right, let's take this part of the statement, which I do agree with. It says, previous research has found that food allergies are more common in people with skin disorders like dermatitis, inspiring the team to investigate this mysterious connection further. Well, any skin is nothing more than fascia. It's nothing more than the membranes that coat. Your skin is nothing more than a big, huge membrane. And everything is coated by basically a membrane. So if you have any skin disorders, any fascia-type disorders, yes, you're going to get, who knows what is going to happen to you, but you're not going to be healthy. All right, now, but they say it's skin disorders. They're not talking about cuts and so forth. Now they go into looking into cuts. Okay, I'm just going to start off by making some statements. We're going to be talking about enzymes, and the enzymes are created by bacteria which live in our body. There are approximately 75,000 different enzymes they know of, and bacteria create each one of those enzymes. They're very specific. I will show you all this in pretty extreme detail. And they have specific duties in your body, and if you can't have the enzymes available, you can't get the chemistry done. If you don't get the chemistry done, something's going to not work in your body that's supposed to work. Even though you have the correct genetic codes, you have everything right, you're eating right and all that, if you can't break those products down with an enzyme, you will not get the end result, which is the molecules. So that's called digestion. And these things are extremely elegant. I'm going to go through little clips from what I just did. I put up, I don't know, a couple hours ago about the problem with enzymes and bacteria and illness and the fluid-filled highway. But I'm going to go down, I'm going to just go clip and clip and clip. This talks about enzymes being these different ones that break down fats and maltase that breaks down maltose and proteins and lactose and all that stuff. Now, enzymes and disease. Listen to this. Listen carefully. Even a deficiency or malfunction of a single enzyme, one single enzyme in the body, can lead to severe illness, highlighting the importance of these biological catalysts. They are produced by bacteria. Okay, my friends, this is just amazing. I just did a video. It's going up now, and it's about digestive disorders and enzymes and bacteria and all that stuff. And this just came out minutes ago from Yale about similar situations, and they're relating skin conditions to food allergies. You know, in a circular sort of way. We're going to look into what they have to say. But as always, I give no medical advice whatsoever. I am not a doctor. I have no authority to give you any advice to do anything. I do research. So I'm going to invoke caveat emptor. I don't sell anything, but it just means let the buyer beware. I'm saying things that could be true, could not be true. But you have to decide for yourself. I've done the research, and I feel, in my opinion, I am giving valid information. But that's up to you Like I say, caveat emptor. You make the decision. Okay, my friends, another mystery. We're going to talk about skin injuries and allergic reactions. Yale is making some claims today we're going to discuss. Now, bacteria produce enzymes. That's just totally understood. Bacteria are the factories that produce enzymes. And they produce them for a whole series of reasons, but basically to break down starches and sugars. That's the amylase. Protease breaks down protein into amino acids. Lipase breaks down fats and fatty acids. Cellulase breaks down cellulose production by soil bacteria and so forth. You have to have bacteria to create the raw materials. When you eat something, it doesn't just turn into little bits and pieces all by itself. It is worked on by acids and salts and primarily by enzymes. Now let me show you something about catalase. Now listen to this now. Enzymes break down molecules extremely fast, millions of times faster than the same reaction would happen without them. You die instantly if you didn't have the enzymes, because you have to have these things on demand, and they happen in seconds. Listen, some enzymes can catalyze thousands to millions of times of reactions per second. Catalase, which we use to test for blood, breaks down hydrogen peroxide into water and hydrogen. It can process up to 40 million molecules a second. Others, like DNA polymerase, it builds DNA, they work slower, but still 100 to 1,000 base pairs per second. That's a lot of chemistry in 1 second. Without them, it doesn't happen. Enzymes are the key to life. So what does that mean? It means the bacteria are the key to life because bacteria create the enzymes. Yes, enzymes are created by bacteria. And bacteria are literally programmers. They program these little ribosomes, which are little chemistry sets, and they float through the body and they fix things when they break, and they break things when they need to break up molecules. They're called enzymes, and they build things when they're needed to build up muscles and bones, and those called proteins. It's a very sophisticated little system, but the bacteria is the programmer and the heart of the system. It carries out all the functions, it programs all the molecules, it cleans up all the messes, it creates all of the food and nutrients that you need. But if you kill that bacteria, you are killing yourself. Enzymes are so unbelievably sophisticated that without the enzyme, it could take millions, even billions of years to do the same amount of chemistry that enzyme can do in less than 1 second. And the enzyme doesn't even get used up doing it. It's called click chemistry. It comes up and it goes click, 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 and I mean just thousands and thousands of times a second. Very, very, very elegant little chemistry. See this? Without enzymes in your body, you would die within minutes. Without enzymes, the body's critical biochemical reactions would slow down just instantaneously, and you die within minutes. They say there's approximately 75,000 different enzymes in the human body. Proteins and enzymes, and they act as catalysts speeding up chemical reactions. You don't have them, you're in trouble. Even one can cause severe illness if it's not working right. Now, I showed a whole batch of different things about fecal matter transplants. They seem to say now they're successfully treating certain things. That's not my words. But I looked them all up, and they're talking about we report a case of a patient with refractory RA successfully treated with FMT, indicating that FMT may have a good therapeutic effect on RA. And that's from 2020. And there's a whole batch of different ones. I search not just one source, because you're always going to have different opinions. This guy's going to say, there's a problem with that study and so forth. Another guy's going to say, no, that study's perfect. So I look and I just report what they're saying. This is research. I'm not saying take it, don't take it. I never, ever, ever say that. But as I continue to look through about these fecal matter transplants and understand the chemistry that they produce with these enzymes, well, I'm starting to think that there's a lot of substance here. In my opinion, that's just my opinion, my theory. Now, I went through about the MMR vaccine and how these are live vaccines. They're very weak, and you're not supposed to get a full-blown disease, but you have to have some ability to fight back. And some of these kids have no bacterial response. They don't have the enzymes to fight back. We don't know what they have in their bodies right now. We don't know what is a natural diversity of bacteria in a very young infant's body before they get the MMR shot. Once that shot is in there, it attacks the intestinal linings, and if you have no protection, it will attack and cause damage. It might make you immune, but it could give you some serious damage too at the same time. It depends on how much resistance you have to it. So you have to have some resistance. Otherwise, you're going to get seriously ill. See, here's what's going on. Measles can affect gut bacteria and a gut microbiome. It attacks it. Measles virus can infect the intestinal tract. Now, if you have a weak intestinal tract already, it's going to damage you, potentially causing intestinal inflammation and affecting the gut microbiome, killing off the good bacteria. It can lead to digestive issues like diarrhea and also increase the risk of secondary infections. Additionally, measles can impair the immune system. Yes, because it's killing your gut bacteria, including the gut-associated immune system, making individuals more vulnerable to gut-related infections. This is all about having these enzymes at the ready, which means you have to have the bacteria. Now, do the bacteria come and create a whole batch of these enzymes? Because they're made into ribosomes, which float around the body. I'm going to show you this in a little more detail. And then those bacteria no longer live in your body. At certain ages, they come and they go, or do they stay for your whole lifetime? This is very important to understand this, because if you only have them at certain ages, a certain group of bacteria, and then they're expunged from your body, but their ribosomes remain just littered throughout the body, that's a possibility that I had not considered before. So we want to look into that. This goes way back to 1995. Measles virus may persist in intestinal tissue, particularly that affected by Crohn's disease, because it's already damaged. Early exposure to measles may be a risk factor. So it's a risk to people that have Crohn's disease, these kids, or they have some defect in their digestive system, and they have no ability to fight back. And then measles does attack the already weakened digestive system. I would think, all of a sudden diarrhea and all that business coming right after getting the MMR, I would be worried about that and look into that, because that would be an indication that the digestive system is being attacked. How bad that is, I don't know. Is it normal? I don't know. There it is. I just looked it up. I asked, is digestive issues normal after MMR shots? It says yes. Digestive issues like diarrhea, vomiting, nausea can be a normal side effect after an MMR shot. It's because it's attacking your gut. Generally, they're mild and temporary. These symptoms are considered common. Yes, it's attacking your gut. If you can't fight back, then you can become seriously ill. It says diarrhea be reported in 1 to 10% of recipients. Elaboration, common side effects. Diarrhea is a common side effect. Other common gastrointestinal issues reported included gastrointestinal parotid gland enlargement and vomiting. Digestive issues are usually mild and so forth. Other side effects. In addition to digestive problems, common side effects also include injection site pain, redness, swelling, fever, and fatigue. You're not digesting your food right. If digestive issues are severe, prolonged, or accompanied by other concerning symptoms, it's always a good idea to consult a doctor. Yeah, you've caused damage to your immune system, basically. Now, they're talking about these different things. Most symptoms start within the first 12 hours after the shot was given. It's so quick to damage the probiotics in you that it's amazing how fast you relate to these invasive chemistries that attack your gut bacteria, shutting down your enzymes. These symptoms start within 12 hours. Now, acute radiation sickness is when you get a pulse of electric, and it kills a whole batch of bacteria, killing your enzymes. You can get sick within an hour. Same symptoms, exact same symptoms. Digestive problems, you're throwing up, all kinds of that stuff. Exactly identical symptoms. All right, diarrhea, gastrointestinal orders, vomiting, all digestive issues because of the bacteria being killed. And it can be killed instantly almost with a pulse, because you're getting a whole lot of it at once. Or in this case, you're invading your own system with the shot, and your system is fighting back, but it can't fight. And the shot is taken over and overwhelming, and then you start having these digestive issues, diarrhea and vomiting and, you know, all that stuff. Bloating and gas and all kinds of things happen because you've damaged your ability to digest. It's really not a hard thing to understand. All right, I think I might have talked about this. They're saying that they claim, this is from Johns Hopkins, they claim that they found measles wipes out the body's memory of bacteria and viruses. Like, you can't remember that you were attacked by a certain bacteria, so you can get attacked again, it looks like to me. It wipes out your memory of bacteria and viruses. It weakens your immune system, making you more likely to get reinfected. And that's what to know about measles and vaccines. Now, this is Johns Hopkins. I went there for genomics, and all the genomes and genes are nothing more than little programs, and they have to get turned on. So there's one vulnerable area. You need a certain a protein, enzyme basically, to go over and turn on, methylate that switch, and it turns on the gene. It says, okay, run your program, and the gene says, okay, and it sends out its program to a bacteria basically, and the bacteria is supposed to have this enzyme, which is the ribosome, or the ribosome is just floating around. But whatever the case is, and I'll show you in a little more details how to explain it in words, but that ribosome is supposed to kill or do whatever the command told it to do, the gene. So the gene sends out the signal, but it has to rely on the enzymes to break down the products it needs to do its job. Let me show you in a little more detail now. Okay, this is serious, and it's very serious, and it's about health. And if you can understand this picture right here, you understand health. And I will make you understand this in 15, 20 minutes tops. This is a bacteria. It creates these protein chains, which are a ribosome, which create your RNA, which changes your DNA so you become immune from stuff. That's it. You're trained. So now you say, Roger, I don't feel real trained. What is this bacteria all about? What's going on with this bacteria? Well, I say this is the source of everything. If you don't have the bacteria, you get none of this stuff happens. It just doesn't happen. I don't care what you do. If you don't have the bacteria, it won't happen. Now, I think I have shown you, or will show you, there's 75,000 different enzymes. This is an enzyme, and a bacteria creates these ribosome enzymes. All right, so that's what a bacteria is. Now let's look at it and see what a ribosome really looks like and how it's produced. So this is the bacteria. Here's what they look like really up close. These are single cells, one cell, tiny, tiny, tiny little buggers. And they create these ribosomes. Now, a ribosome is a little tiny ball, and they're so tiny that 1,000,000 or more, 1,000,000 or more, can fit into a human cell. And every cell can have 1,000,000 or more, which brings up a very interesting aspect. They may come, bacteria, and just populate the whole body and then never show up again at some point during your life. They may have life cycles just like we have a life cycle. And at a certain point, they die off. And we lose those enzymes. This is something to consider, because these are the ribosomes, these are the enzymes. So don't forget, we got a bacteria. It's got a little flagella. It can go flying around through the fluid-filled highway. It lives in this fluid-filled highway. And it spits out these little ribosomes, which are these balls. These are basically inert, meaning they don't eat and they don't poop. They just float around inside the body until something triggers them. What triggers them? I don't know. But something tells it, turn on and go do a job. And what happens? That little ball is like this little ball right here. And they're so small, 1,000,000 or more can fit in a single cell. But when it gets triggered, it does a whole new thing. It goes, and all of that stuff turns into its unrestricted form, and it pops, and it's got to be exactly identical to that. Every single one of them has a green thing sticking there, the blue one over here, this hole here, this hole here. All of that is what's called a magnetic signature, dipole magnetic moments. And these things work with what I call click chemistry. So once they're in the open state, they go just clicking, just like execution, thousands and thousands and thousands of times a second, creating unbelievable chemistry in the body. All right, so I showed you the bacteria, and I showed you those little tiny ribosome balls. Well, this is how the ribosomes get formed. All right, coming out of here is the ribosome ball, but how that ball gets created is this way here. Inside here, you get all these little codes coming together, and you see this? Those won't go together. They're not supposed to be. But if it was this way, you've got a polypeptide chain. They come out like this, not outside of the cell. Inside of the cell, they're formed. Inside of the bacterial cell, they're formed, and then they pop out as the complete ribosome. All right. This just shows how it gets transcribed. And when I say transcribed, it means these little balls come as a chain in here. All right. Well, actually, this is showing how the ribosome dissolves and sends codes into the RNA. All right, I'm sorry, I was wrong. The ribosome comes out, and here there's what's called transferase, and that's an enzyme. So you got your ribosome, which contains a ton of enzymes. You got transferase, which they don't say, T is transferase for the RNA, and it dissolves this ribosome, and they just go dum, 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 and they load into the RNA. Now the RNA comes up, and now you got another enzyme, which is polymerase, RNA polymerase. It dissolves a section in the DNA and lets this piece migrate in and creates a new immunity. All right, that's how an immunity is formed. So now we have created the ribosome, which is the ball. The ball floats around in the body. All right, and here it becomes dissolved and programs, and then this comes up. For some reason, the uracil dissolves it. All right, the U is the uracil. Well, something dissolves it. I don't know what. But it's polymerase is the dissolving enzyme, and then this code is fit together with a new segment in it that says, now you're immune to measles, whatever it is. All right, so that's one use for a bacteria, is to create immunities using ribosomes. You see this? This is the number of amino acids there are. like I was telling you, you got a polypeptide chain. They don't have to be long. They can be very short. They can be very long. And then they come down and this transfer RNase transfers it into the messenger RNA, and it splices itself into the DNA. All right, this is just one job of these little ribosomes, is to create immunities. Now, what other jobs do they have to do? Everything in your body, 100%. These are the ribosomes. Okay, these are those little balls. Some trigger, whatever it is, flips a switch and says, all right, you got to do your job. And instantaneously, they unsheath. So normally they're like this, and all of a sudden they go, and they open up to be very, very exotic magnetic signatures. Now, an enzyme breaks things. A protein does basically the same thing. It comes from the same source, except it builds things. So this breaks up and gets the little particles ready when you eat something. You flush all these different enzymes in, depending upon what you're eating. Now, if you have good digestion, you don't get heartburn, you don't get nausea, you don't get diarrhea, you don't get, any of that stuff. You just digest the food and everything's good. You're happy, you go home and have a good time. But if you don't have the enzymes and you eat something greasy or whatever it is, there's a lot of different triggers. And if you don't have you don't have the enzyme, you can't trigger it. You don't have the enzyme. You're not going to break it down. Your body's going to try to work with it, but it's going to cause inflammation a lot of times. It's just not being digested correctly. Let's just stick with metabolism, digestion, breaking it down. It's not going to happen. Without the enzymes, it's not going to happen. So what does that mean? Two things. You're not going to be able to digest it. It's going to disrupt you. You're going to have a lot of gas, and things won't break down correctly and be digested correctly. So you're going to have gas and bloating and odors and just nasty. And you're not going to produce this bones and the skin and the collagens and keratins and all the other things that you need to build your tendons and muscles and bones and all that stuff, because you won't have it broken down into its correct little tiny components where you can build it back up again. So they both come out of a ribosome. One of them turns into an enzyme, which is a breaker. Some other ones come out of other type of bacteria, but are still the same ball. They turn into proteins and you build something. And they send them to where they're needed to have something built. When you break your arm or do something like that, all that stuff does its job. It's not just accidentally bumps into it and you get better. It's being told what to do somehow, and I'm not exactly sure what. But it's in the lymph fluid somehow. The lymph fluid I can see is intelligent. I have seen this. Actually, I have visualized lymph fluid doing its work inside, or actually outside of a creature's body, but sort of looking into it. I've shown that many times. All right, listen to this. These bacteria fight each other desperately. Bacteria definitely fight each other. This is from chat. It says, and they can be surprisingly aggressive about it. There's a few ways they go to war. One is chemical warfare. Some bacteria produce antibiotics. They make their own antibiotics, toxins that kill or inhibit nearby competitors. They go out and they just kill them and attack them. That's actually how we discovered many antibiotics. They're natural weapons bacteria use against each other. So if you don't have that kind of bacteria, you can't produce that kind of weapon. All right? Then you got type 6 secretion system, which is it's like a microscopic injector. It injects other bacteria with toxins, proteins, toxic proteins, which are nothing more than enzymes. Then 3 is a resource competition, which means that the bacteria compete for nutrients in space. Well, That's obviously. Some species can outgrow others or alter the environment to make it less favorable for competitors. They're changing the oxidation states and oxygen, the pH, and all that stuff inside by their own chemistry, designed to destroy the other guy's chemistry. It's just a continuous bit of warfare. Now then they have biofilm territory. These are like basically membranes. In biofilms, communities of bacteria, different species or strains can form boundaries, which are membranes, push others out or block them from accessing resources. All right, then the next one is number 5 is bacteriocins. These are special proteins, which are nothing more than enzymes, produced by some bacteria to kill closely related strains. They're going to go out and kill their brothers and sisters. It's like of a kind of targeted poison. So you're only killing closely related strains. So there's some serious stuff going on here with these little microbes. They're deadly little buggers, and they know what they're doing. The kind of programs that they can create are just, look at that. You see that right there? I don't know if I showed you that yet, but that's the product of an enzyme. When we're looking at an enzyme, you look at that and you say, ooh, isn't that interesting? Well, guess what? An enzyme is basically like that. And if it's not exactly identical to that every single time, you're sick. You don't have the enzyme. It won't work. It's called denatured. If this is like this, and it's supposed to be like that, and every time it comes out like this, everything's good. If this is here, ends up being there, you're done. It's not going to work. They're that sophisticated. Every single magnetic moment has to be in the right place to go, and it just wipes everything out and does all of its chemistry instantaneously. All right, so now we have to consider this. They're saying in experiments in mice, the team found that when new foods were introduced to the guts of the animal soon after damage to the skin, the mice developed allergic reactions to them. I don't think that's across the board, but let's see. The injuries boosted production of allergy-related antibodies. All right, which makes sense. You have an injury, you're going to have some kind of a boost of an antibody to attack the things that are trying to get in through that incision, that cut. All right, so a reaction known as a humoral response. We're going to look at that in a minute. So let's look at it one more time. The injuries boosted production of allergy-related antibodies, which is known as a humoral response. Now, it's the first time this overreaction from biological defenses, which can cause allergies. It's an overreaction to an invasion. For what reason? Who knows? It says the injuries, some injury in you, somewhere way over on the other side of your body, has caused things to be in the fluid-filled highway that make an overreaction to another damage somewhere in the other part of the body, or actually to food. For some reason it's related to the food, I don't know. It's the first time overreaction of biological defenses, which can cause allergies, has been shown to work across distant parts of the body. So they're saying that you get skin damage over here. Well, the researchers used experiments on mice to highlight remote priming. Okay, so remote priming. From over here to over here or over here, I don't know what they're talking about. He says, in this study, we find that the systemic effects of skin inflammation are sufficient to initiate humoral responses to spatially uncoupled antigens. Well, anyway, a concept that we define as remote priming. They just throw word salads out here. They can make this much easier to understand by just saying that in one area, if you got some kind of an infection going on, it creates a response that pumps up a response to a new food and says, oh, we really don't want you at this point in time, and then it creates an allergy to it, so that anytime you see it, you don't think you want it, and you become allergic to it. But that's what they're talking about. Now, see, we already know that the way allergens trigger allergic responses can take advantage of skin injuries to break into the body, something the researchers are terming local priming in light of their new discoveries. It's just you got a cut and it gets infected. But you normally can resist that infection. Now, let me just show you how a cut works. So you may not even understand what cuts are all about. Here's your skin. And this is just new, that they just discovered this layer here. And that's the layer that's supposed to protect you, that white layer. Here's your skin. You get a cut through there. Well, you cut right down to here and nothing happens. It's just, this stuff is expendable. There's almost no blood in it. Once you hit that layer there, which is down below the skin, now you're down just above the vital flesh, and it says, no, you can't come through here. And it says, oh yeah, well, guess what? I'm a knife. Now your knife is down in here. And so, whoa, 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 whoa. No, 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 no. That's not allowed. Now, if you get something and it gets down in here and it breaks off, like I had a bunch of briars. I got stuck in a briar patch, and I had stuck through these layers, and they were down inside there. These briars broken off, and boy, they fester up and get nasty because your body wants to get them out of there. So they send all this stuff through the fluid-filled highway to get it out of there, and it does. Eventually, it pops right out. But in the meantime, it hurts like hell. But my point is, this is the barrier that says, no, you can't come through here. You come through there, you're going to hurt my vital flesh. And if you're a tumor type of a cell, something that wants to grow and looking for something good to grow into, this is where you got a lot of blood, you got nutrition, you got continuously giving you new stuff. That's where they want to sink their roots into. And here's what they do. Here's exactly how they work. They come up to your body and they send in their little tentacles, and if they can squeeze in between your cells, your tight junctions, and start living in your body, they're just living here, getting big on your dime. Everything you eat is going to be going to that guy, and he's getting bigger, 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 bigger. Now, we're sending in the troops to attack them. They got to have enough troops to snip these things off, and that takes enzymes. So that's what they're coming to attack, these things. And here it is right here about Parkinson's. Gut bacteria suggests unexpected simple treatment. That's bacteria and ribosomes. And here's the way they attack each other. And they're talking about superbugs. There's all kinds of bugs now. I mean, and they keep coming, newer and newer and newer ones. That's why, they talk about these epidemics. Well, they're going to happen, yes. But if you have enough good bacteria in you, you're going to be affected, but you may not be a casualty. Unless there's going to be 100% casualties, if you're healthy, you're probably not going to be a casualty. All right? When there was a lot of people getting sick, and they're still sick now, a lot of them have long, whatever it is, COVID or whatever, and they never really recover because they haven't repopulated their digestive system with the correct bacteria. And we don't know what the correct bacteria are. We don't know. Because they create the enzymes, and the only thing that does chemistry fast enough is the enzymes. So you have to have the bacteria to make the enzymes and so forth. Now, do we continually have those bacteria living us in from day one and they never go away? They're supposed to stay and never die off? Or do they populate your body with a whole bunch of ribosomes and then just eventually drop off the chart and you don't have them anymore? That's a possibility. I never considered that until just in the last few days. I've been thinking maybe that's what's going on. And once you just, because they talk about forgetting that you had these immunities. Well, the only way you could forget is to wipe all of those ribosomes out, take them out of there, so you don't have any immunities anymore. Then you forget because you can't call on anybody to do the job. They're not there anymore. But you didn't just forget it. When they say measles makes you forget that you have these these, immunities. No, I can't believe that. All right, I'm not going to go too much longer here, but I'm just going to say that they're saying the experiments carried out here showed messenger molecules called cytokines triggering antibiotic reactions, which antibiotic reactions is going to happen when you're being invaded. Yes, absolutely. And it says it seems these molecules might be a crucial first step to remote priming, sounding an alarm in the gut when the skin is breached by injuries. So for some reason it says to the gut, we're being breached up here by some injury. So from now on, anytime you eat a certain food, it just doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't make any sense at all. It says it could cause the body to blame the distant injury on the new food, launching immune responses next time it's encountered. I suppose it's possible. I'd have to see some really, really good results on that. Now, it says all of this still needs to be confirmed in humans as well as mice, of course. But the researchers are keen to identify the other cells involved in turning our stomachs against certain foods. It's not turning against the foods. You have to be able to deal with the foods and with the enzymes. Otherwise, you're going to potentially have disastrous results. I agree. All right, just think about this logically. It says the injuries to your skin and so forth boosted production of allergy-related antibodies. Well, why do they say allergy-related? A reaction known as humoral response. Well, what is humoral response? Let's see. Allergy-related antibodies are just reactions to inflammation, basically. All right, it really makes very little sense what they're talking about at Yale. You have humoral immunity is the aspect of immunity that's mediated by macromolecules, big molecules, including secreted antibodies, complement proteins, and certain antimicrobial peptides. They're located in extracellular fluids. They're floating around through your body. Humoral immunity is named so because it involves substances found in the humors or body fluids. They're just floating around through your lymph. It contrasts with cell-mediated immunity, which is inside the cells. Humoral immunity is also referred to as antibody-mediated immunity. It's just floating through your body because you have inflammation somewhere, and they're in the fluid-filled highway just floating around. Now, they're going to migrate to where they're needed. They're not just going to migrate. They're directed somehow, as far as I'm concerned, to where they're needed. But they're going to be throughout your immune system. That would be my interpretation. I'm almost certain, because of the fluid-filled highway. All right, I just don't think Yale gets it. Humoral immunity is the aspect of immunity mediated by macromolecules floating throughout the entire body, including secreted antibodies, complement proteins, antimicrobial peptides, all located in extracellular fluids, just floating through the body. That's what I believe is really your immunity. However, they can be directed to where they're needed, and they may even be directed to where they're needed specifically by the species that is needed to create the toxin or antitoxin or whatever it is that they secrete to deal with the invader. Now, they also have just a standard set of molecules, bacteria in you that create enzymes that break down food and so forth. Just the average standard, housekeeping sort of stuff that has to be there all the time. But when you get invaded by something, that's a whole different issue. Either you have something already in stock that's ready to go on the shelf, or you have to create it. Now, these little bacteria and viruses in us are programmers. They literally can program other bacteria to do a job, but they have to go out and assess what they have to do, come back and write the program, burn it into a chip, basically a little bacteria, and it starts squirting out ribosomes. And the next thing you know, it overcomes the invader, hopefully, and then you become immune to that invader in the future because you have the program now. All right, just to package this all together, we know we're dealing with bacteria that create the ribosomes. The ribosomes create the messenger RNA, which programs our DNA to become immune. Okay, so the bacteria makes the ribosome, which programs the mRNA, which programs our DNA for us to become immune. Now, as far as having infections here that cause food allergies, I disagree with that. These different bacteria strains and different species and so forth, the shapes and arrangements, are different chemistry sets, basically, that break down the products that come in, so they're not seen as attackers. Now, I'd like to see some more research. I didn't see any research, to be honest with you. They had a peer-reviewed paper, but I didn't see any research about it. Maybe I missed it, but that is their assumption, is that a remote infection can cause a food allergy. I don't see that as, in my mind. However, I do see that if you don't have the correct species of bacteria, of beneficial bacteria, and there's thousands and thousands, there's 75,000 enzymes, and the bacteria create the enzymes. There's all kinds of harmful ones too. And this is the one that this is the only thing they give you that allows you to have a fecal matter transplant, is this Clostridium difficile, because there's really no other way to effectively treat it, but the fecal matter transplant fixes it. And then they found out that people that had all kinds of other conditions, those cleared up too when they had the fecal matter transplant for the Clostridium. Very strange. And if you look it up, all kinds of people were cured from even baldness from a fecal matter transplant because they had Clostridium. So not only did it fix that, but it fixed them from being bald. If that's a fix, I don't know. Bald is okay. I see a lot of bald people now, and they seem to like it. This right here, if you had enough different species, and you're not going to get them all from one guy, I don't think. Because nobody's going to be that healthy. So you would have to get them from a whole batch of different people, basically, and get that feces and figure out all the different bacteria, and all the good ones, the bad ones, everything. And then eventually, if you did swabs from just a whole huge swath of people, and then you see what's in there, and sooner or later you're going to say, boy, everybody that's got arthritis is way up here with this biofactoid or whatever it is. And then you come up with you need so much of this and not that, and so little of this, and it would work its way out where you could diagnose a person just by what bacteria were too much of the harmful or not enough of the good, or vice versa, however it works out. And it could be very complex, because you might need a whole lot of this because you got too much of this, or way too much of this because you got not enough of this, and it's just, who knows? But that's what AI does. It figures all these things out. You put the data in, you say, here's the symptoms, and here's what the bacteria proliferations are. And then sooner or later, you're going to get some kind of an idea. I mean, you have to. It's just obvious. And like I was saying, with a very good app on a cell phone, you should be able to take a picture of poop. It's got to be prepped correctly, obviously. And then you send it in, and they would look at all the different configurations of bacteria and the different colors, and they would determine how much of each type of species you had, and then compare it to the database and send back what your profile is compared to the database. And then you would maybe just make recommendations. You need to up a little of this and take less of this, and whatever it is. But at least that way there, you would know, where do you stand versus the norm. All right, I'm just going to leave it at this, but it's right across the board. If you have any condition whatsoever, put in that condition and like Alzheimer's and FMT, fecal matter transplant. Fecal microbiota transplant role in the treatment of Alzheimer's. In humans, FMT, fecal matter transplant, effect was measured by mini mental state examination, showing improvement in Alzheimer's symptoms of mood, memory, so forth. Here's another one, Frontiers. Fecal microbiota transplant, a novel strategy for. Numerous studies have shown that FMT can improve Alzheimer's disease, which may be related to reducing the abundance of pathogenic bacteria, exerting the anti-inflammatory, yada, yada, yada. Fecal matter transplant, you're getting new bacteria. This is not hard to figure out. And literally anything, I mean literally anything, put it in and see, are they looking into it with fecal matter transplant? And most of the time it will say it's shown to have a good effect. I mean, virtually anything. Let's take obesity. Look at this. I haven't looked at this yet. This is hilarious. I put in obesity and FMT. Right away, it comes up, how does obesity cause dementia? So they're relating obesity to dementia. Does obesity cause memory loss? Obesity and functional limitations. Well, let's see what they say about, does a fecal matter transplant have anything to do to help obesity? Let's see. I just find it funny that because it says dementia also is helped by fecal matter transplant. This is just crazy. They're not doing this more. All right, let's see what it says. Impact of fecal matter on obesity. Taken together, fecal matter transplant in patients with obesity and MS showed a short-term benefit on insulin sensitivity. It did not confer a benefit with regards to da 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 da. Let's see what it says. Fecal matter transfer for weight and glycerin. As a weight loss and glycerin control therapy, helps to prevent and treat metabolic problems linked to obesity and is a viable alternative to probably bariatric surgery. This is National Health Center. As a metabolic disease associated with was conducted by authors in order to provide clinical recommendations regarding the treatment of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, type 2 diabetes. And this is with fecal microbiota transplant. And this is all these kind of things for weight and glycemic control, obesity, as well as associated metabolic diseases. I mean, this looks like it covers a lot of stuff. Again, National Library of Health. Listen to this. This is the National Institute of Health. The first findings of the research indicated weight and body mass were much lower following FMT therapy than they had been. This glucosin-like peptide may be released by the gut microbiota via route involving da-da-da-da. This gets a little complicated. But it says additionally, the gut microbiota alters the routes used by the bile acids, which impacts how lipids are broken down. It's all got to do with enzymes and the microbiota. Now, implies FMT aids in weight loss in obese individuals, and the treatment of obesity may be possible with this method. Now listen to this. Here's what the professionals did. All right? It says, in addition, the study found that blood glucose levels were not statistically significantly affected by FMT. Well, guess why? It says they weren't significantly affected by FMT. This may be due to the fact that the people included in the study were all individuals with normal blood glucose. And so it's just, it went on with its life. It says, okay, just keep doing what you're doing. You got normal blood glucose, so you have the right enzymes anyway, so it doesn't matter taking. So therefore, listen to this. Therefore, we further conducted another group study analysis of people with diabetes. So now they got ones with not normal blood glucose. It was revealed that FMT greatly reduced fasting blood glucose in people with diabetes. It greatly reduced it. Now listen to this. However, because this group, this Ding and his group et al. Means only conducted one research study which explored the impact of FMT on blood glucose among people suffering from this T2DM. The objectivity outcome was challenged. They said, oh, you only just did one study. You got to do 35 studies. You got to do this. You got to jump through hoops for 65 years and then something. No. FMT worked, and it works very well. And they go on here to talk about it in extremely positive ways. But you can't patent a living bacteria. You can't patent it. So there's very little research in this, almost none, over the course of forever. Listen, conclusion, as a weight loss and glycemic control therapy, FMT helps to prevent and treat metabolic problems linked to obesity. It's a viable alternative to bariatric surgery, like cutting you in pieces, for patients who do not wish to undergo the procedure. I don't think a whole lot of people would wish to go that procedure. No, they're attacking them. There's a great deal of support and assistance that go into writing this paper. The first thing I'd like to do is express my gratitude. And he's going on, but he's saying, you know, we got whacked. All right, they didn't like what we did. Basically, that's what I take this paper is trying to defend what their evidence. And nobody will look at it. So we only did one study. We'll do a study. You do a study. You do one. You have 10 people. You got all these researchers. What do they research? This is what kills me. Well, who the hell are they doing? What are they doing? I see no research. I see all these little silly statements about a cut on your skin can give you a food allergy. That's not research. All right, I'm just going to leave it at this. FMT is generally considered safe and effective, especially for treating recurrent CDI. While mild side effects like gastrointestinal discomfort can occur, obviously, serious complications are rare. But you have to have strict donor screening protocols and crucial to minimize the risk of transmitting infections from one person to the other. Yes, that's not hard to do. And it seems to be so effective that it's very, 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 very difficult for me to rationalize why this hasn't been more investigated and at least experimented with. Because they always say, oh, more experiment, we need more testing. Only one research, they didn't look into this, nobody's doing this, nobody did that. Well, why? What happened to the actual research about this? Because if this is true, which it appears to me, I can't see any reason to discount these fecal matter transplants as being basically restarting your immune system. This is restarting your immune system and starting to create all of the products that your body needs to be healthy. That's what bacteria does. It does those two things. It breaks down the food so you can absorb them perfectly, and it kills the invaders. And it cleans up the garbage at the same time. These things are very, very, very exotic little buggers. And we need to investigate them more and find out what bacteria do exist and do exactly what I'm hoping to have them do, is this. But you got to start right from the day they're born. Test the gut bacteria right away after a day or so, and see what they have in them, because it happens like this. It's fast. The gut changes fast. And bacteria can come and go fast, and the enzymes are required very, very quickly and in certain quantities. So you need to know, what do they have in them, what's normal. any medical issue before and after, you should know. And to do this, hopefully, if it works out the way I'm thinking, a spectral analysis, taking a picture of the poop and sending it off and they'll look at that spectrum and they'll say, you got so much of wrong things. And they'll know, the spectrum will indicate what kind of species are there, hopefully. Anyway, we got to do that, send it off, and they'll send right back. Within a couple of minutes, you'd know exactly what the condition of your gut was because of the fecal picture of the poop. Now, we have to know this on and off a lot. Just keep, if you just don't feel right, send it off. And you'll say, now you're low on such and such a thing. And you may go up and down all over the place. People probably do. Even when they say, yeah, I'm feeling terrible today. I feel blue. I just don't feel right. That just could be a bacteria. It could be as simple as that. So anyway, we want to match the results right away. And you should know if you have the right bacteria, and almost instantaneously. So that's it for today, and hopefully Kennedy will look into this a little bit. I'd like to work with him. Especially, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, autism, all these neurological diseases are very, very specific. Rheumatoid arthritis. Everybody's been asking me to look into this, look into that. All I can do is show you the research that exists. I can't tell you I did that research. I didn't. I've done some observational studies with autism, yes. But I can't give any advice or talk about it more than to say that they did see some changes that were very positive related to probacteria. And you look at it, well, let me just do one last one, and then that's it for today. All right, this is it. Fecal microbiota transplant shows promise in reducing autism symptoms, particularly in cases linked to gut dysbiosis. Virtually every kid with autism has a problem with pooping. They're either constipated, they have diarrhea, they have vomiting, all kinds of problems like that. Some studies have shown significant improvement in language, social interactions, and behavior, with some effects lasting for years. However, it's crucial to remember that FMT is still experimental treatment. More research is needed. Of course, more. To fully understand its effective long-term implications. It's straightening out your gut. Once you poop correctly, it means you're digesting correctly. And if you need some good bacteria put in you because you don't have it, or your bacteria has been damaged because they gave you, antibiotics, and some of these kids get antibiotics as soon as they're born. They actually have the mother on antibiotics intravenously, some of them, as the baby's being born. You got to make sure the kid's got some kind of bacteria in them that's going to fight back against these inoculations and so forth that they're going to have these live viruses. You have to have something that puts up some kind of a defense. And these kids, if they don't have them, within 24 hours, they got a problem. And I hear this from a lot of people. It's not just one here and one there. So I know that, this is observational only. I'm not telling you take anything, don't take anything, do this, don't do that. Never will I ever say that. And I will tell you one thing right now. The vaccines have been very, very, very helpful to stop these diseases, no question whatsoever. But all we have to do is know, has the kid got anything to fight back with? If he has nothing, then he's going to have a problem. All you have to do is give him the right bacteria, then give him the shot. Everything should be fine. Most kids don't get any problems at all because they have something to fight back with. Those are the kids that play in the mud and in the dirt. They get a lot of stuff on them. And they push their fingers in their mouth, they're touching everything there is. Dogs are licking them and who knows what. And really, that's not bad. They think that you try to keep them as clean as you can keep them. I don't think that's the best situation for becoming immune. You have to be exposed. But and you have such a good immune system, this fluid-filled highway. All you got to do is throw some bugs in there, and they'll do the job. But once you kill the bugs, or you never had them, the job just doesn't get done. There's no way you can do it. It cannot happen without the enzymes, and you can only get the enzymes if you have the bacteria. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you. I love you all. I'd love to see people get healthy, and it's not that big of a deal, I don't think. First thing is the database. Numero uno.